G'day guys, how are you going? Now today we are reviewing the 2020 Volkswagen Amarok Canyon, which is a special edition limited to just 350 units here in Australia. It also comes with some pretty cool and unique upgrades over a standard Amarok because this is the off-roading special edition. But it has one major flaw, so make sure you watch to the end of this video to decide if the Volkswagen Amarok Canyon, or any Amarok for that matter, is worth it for you. Also, the car has 10-year-old underpinnings, which makes it one of the oldest utes for sale here in Australia. So is it still worth picking up? Well, today we're going to find out. Now, as always, we're going to start by taking a look at the exterior of the Volkswagen Amarok. Then we're going to move on to the interior and see how it drives. And finally, we're going to end on that question, is it worth it? Make sure as well, if you do enjoy the video, go down there right now and leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel out. And if you're new, subscribe so you can see cool car reviews just like this. Enough chit chat, let's just get straight into it. Oh, it's pretty fast. Now, starting with the exterior, I really like the look of the front of the Volkswagen Amarok, even if it is a bit on the older, probably outdated side. Now, being the special edition Canyon for off-roading, you do get a front skid plate, which is pretty cool. And I love the giant VW badge on the front. It is absolutely massive, almost the size of the Volkswagen Polo I reviewed. Not quite, but it is really big. But it is within the grille, which itself is pretty average. It's pretty small, and it's just on the boring side. There's not much going on with it. It's not awful, it's just boring. Of course, flanking the grille are the headlights, which are really showing their age. They are the old design language now for Volkswagen. You know, you have a look at the new T-Roc or the new 8th generation Golf, and that's the new design language, and it is just starting to show its age. The headlights themselves are actually very functional. They are the bi-xenon headlights because this is what comes in the Canyon package. You get better headlights on the lower model, which is pretty good. The daytime running light is, again, old design. It's okay, it's fine, it's old. And I think that's a theme you'll find across the looks of this Amarok. But yeah, very bright headlights. They work very well. It's just the look. Otherwise, there's not very much going on with the front of the Volkswagen Amarok, and I do like the design overall. Then we have the side, and this is where you can really see the candy white paint shine. And I mean literally shine. It is so bright. It has to be the brightest white I have ever seen on a car. I actually don't mind it. The side is where you can also really distinguish that this is a Canyon model. And can you tell why? Probably can't see it. There's a tiny little decal on the side that says Canyon. Sorry, not tiny, massive decal on the side that says Canyon. It's absolutely huge, but it really does help to break up the absolutely bleaching white on the side of the car, so I like it. You can also see just how big the Volkswagen Amarok is. It is 5.25 meters long and 1.83 meters tall. Now, I'm 179 centimeters tall, 1.79 meters, and it's cool. I can just slide on into the car. I don't have to lift up or go down. It's literally a side step and I'm in the car, and I like that. And actually, you don't get that on all of the competitors in this class because this is one of the biggest, if not the biggest ute in the class. I really like the Canyon's 17-inch bespoke wheels. They're really cool, and the reason that they look quite small is because they are quite small. As I said, this is the off-roading edition, and when you go off-roading, you don't want bigger rims, you want smaller rims and bigger tires, and that's what's delivered. So it is functional to have smaller wheels sometimes, but it does look quite comical because they are so small compared to the size of the car. So there's massive gaps, especially at the back of the car, because the suspension is obviously stronger to take the bigger payload. So it does look pretty funny having small wheels on such a big car and seeing the huge gap under the fender flares. But that's awesome. It means you can put on huge knobby tires and you're going to have plenty of clearance still. Although off-roading isn't this car's forte, and we will be getting into that very shortly. And also, just as a side note, no pun intended, the doors have a lot of heft to them and feel really good when you open and you close them. And that's not something you get on every car, and it helps the car feel a lot more substantial, a lot more robust. So that's just good attention to detail. Oh, and the mechanical locking sounds, pretty cool. The rear is actually one of my favorite parts of the car, not because it's very pleasant to look at, but because of the huge Volkswagen badge on the back. I love it. It's bigger than my hand, and for some reason gives me some sort of pride when I walk up to the back of the car and it's not even my car. The tub itself is actually lockable, and it's not something you get on all of its competitors, which is a really big thumbs up. We will be getting into the tub soon as well. The tail lights as well, there's nothing really that special, though to be fair, I don't think you'll find any ute out there that has beautiful tail lights. It's just not a thing. They're boxy, they're functional, they're big, they're cool, especially at nighttime. I love the way that they look. It gives it its Volkswagen look, even if again it is old design language. Oh, one thing as well is that the rear brake light also acts as a floodlight for the tub at nighttime, which is really cool. It means you can see in the back. There's a button in the interior, you press that, turns on. Lovely. So even though the Amarok is a bit of an older design, I don't really mind it. I think it's one of the boxier, more masculine utes on the market, and that's a big plus. I think for a lot of guys who buy the Amarok, and the vast majority of people who buy the Amarok are tradesmen who want a cool masculine car, and you get that with the Volkswagen Amarok. Give it a bit of pep here. This thing is a torque monster. But let me know what you guys think of the Volkswagen Amarok's looks. Is it getting a bit old and a bit boring, or is it still really cool and masculine? Let me know down in the comments right now. Now let's get onto the interior, and we're gonna start with the good. First of all, these seats are awesome. This is part of the Canyon package. So you get partial leather and partial cloth. These are unique seats, and they're superbly comfortable. Now they are manual adjustment, which is a bit of a shame, but they're really easy to adjust, and they're just super comfortable over longer journeys. They're very supportive. They're a bit sporty with the side bolsters, and they just work. I actually really like the look of the orange stitching of them and the orange on the cloth. That is unique to the Canyon model, and it's cool, and it's definitely a theme across this interior. Then we have the steering wheel, and for all my long-time subscribers out there, you know how much I care about my steering wheels, and this steering wheel is pretty good. It's awesome to hold. It's like every other Volkswagen steering wheel, very, very comfortable. I love the orange stitching on them. It's just so unique, and it's really nice in the hand. It is quality leather. What I don't like so much about it is the lack of controls on the steering wheel. Yes, there are enough to get by with the multimedia on the left and the gauge controls on the right, but you'll find in newer Volkswagens you have the cruise control up there as well, which you don't get. It's on the stalk here. And so you do find yourself going out and touching different areas to control different things like the media, because the controls themselves are okay, but they're not amazing. And to be a great steering wheel, you need to not be able to take your hands off the steering wheel to control most functions. But it is beautiful, I'll give it that. The air conditioning controls as well, I love them because they're physical and they just work so intuitively and so well. Zero complaints there. Also with the Canyon package, you do get a few extras dotted throughout the interior. The gear selector is fantastic. It feels really good in the hand, and it has orange stitching. The center console, again, unique. It has orange stitching, feels fantastic. My one complaint there is it's actually not as big as it looks, because when you lift it up, there's hardly any space on the inside. Half of it is taken up by the handbrake. The seat belts, they're orange. They look great. I love them. Also, the floor mats, they are unique to the Canyon. Orange writing saying Canyon so no one forgets. And you have stitching on them, leather stitching, which is cool. So you do get a few different things in the Canyon package, which makes the interior just a bit more aesthetic and breaks up the black. You also get awesome visibility in this car. It's such a boxy design that you can see out of every window amazingly well. That's great. But let's get on to the bad, and this is where you can really tell this car is based on 10-year-old underpinnings. First of all, everywhere you touch, hard plastic. Like, legitimately everywhere you touch. There's only two places where it's nice and soft. Here and here. It looks nice, and I do understand that this is meant to be a work truck, and as a result, they're not going to put nice leather everywhere or any sort of soft plastics, but I mean, they could, they just don't. And then there are these gauges, and these gauges are just not very good. They're bright and they're visible. They could be digital, they're not. Again, this is a work vehicle, so I get it. But what really ruins it is the LCD screen in the middle. It is very, very laggy. And even though there is menus in there, they're not full of information like you'll get in the Hyundai Velocerai review, and you can click up there to watch that. But most annoying to me of all is that the speedometer readout, the digital speedometer readout, which at least it has, is laggy. It lags behind the analog gauges, and that does my head in. You might already be at 60 kilometers an hour and it's only at 54 kilometers an hour, and then a second later it'll get to 60, but it doesn't give you an accurate reading at the time, and that's annoying. That's more nitpicky than anything else, but still. This 6.33 inch infotainment screen is absolutely tiny, and even though it does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, big props for that, it is still quite laggy and just and such a small display. And it doesn't have digital radio, nor does it have inbuilt navigation. Now, I don't really care about inbuilt navigation, but it does get you out of tricky situations when your phone is dead, for instance. But at least you can charge your phone up there, so it's not the end of the world. But I wish it did have digital radio. But otherwise, that's my only real complaints with the interior. So even though it is older, it still manages to be just okay. It just scrapes by, especially with technology. But its competitors do it better, like the Ford Ranger. Now, quickly talking about the back seats, it's actually a pretty good situation back there for a dual cab ute. There's just enough leg room for me when I'm sitting in my own position, and there is so much headroom. So taller people will be okay. Might have to move the front seats. And you get the same Canyon seats back there. So partial leather, partial cloth. It's nice, it's a cool look. It does have a party trick up its sleeve as well. You can lift up the rear bench seats so you can have more storage in there, or fold them down as well if you like. There isn't much in terms of amenities back there though. There's one 12-volt socket back there, which is a bit old. It would have been nice to have USBs or air vents for that matter. Also, there are cup holders on the ground, which is a very odd placement. I would not trust a drink in there. I would only imagine it would spill everywhere. Now, talking about the tub, it is 1,620 millimeters wide, 1,555 millimeters long, and there is 1,200 millimeters of space between the wheel arches, which means you can get a full-size pallet into the back of the tub. Not sure why you'd want to do that considering the tub is painted. There's no plastic protection over it, and you will just scratch up the back a lot. Usually you would put it on a steel tray more than anything else, but whatever, at least you can do that if you so please. And the tub is pretty practical. It has 4 tie-down points, it has drainage plugs, and the payload weight back there is just under 1 ton, which is a little bit below average, but only by a few kilograms. So it's relatively practical. Now let's talk about the engine, which is the best part of this car. It is just an absolute curler of an engine. It is a 3-litre turbo diesel V6, putting out 165 kilowatt of power and 550 newton meters of torque. It also has a nifty overboost feature, and just for a few seconds. This engine will do 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 7.9 seconds. But really, it is faster than that. You can get the Amarok with a couple of other different engines. You can get a 4-cylinder diesel as well, or you can get an even more powerful V6, putting out 190 kilowatt of power and 580 newton meters of torque. But I think this engine really is a sweet spot, and you're not going to be missing the slightly more powerful 580 TDI, they call it, because it still puts out a lot of power. Oh, what a beautiful engine. Now, all that power is driven to a permanent all-wheel drive system, which is unique for the class, and through a awesome ZF 8-speed transmission, which is a beautiful transmission. So many manufacturers use it, and it is fantastic. As I said earlier, the Volkswagen Amarok is a torque monster. It is super, super torquey, and that means that when you pull off from a line, it throws you back, and it's a great feeling. You know, I just came off reviewing the Toyota Supra, and you can click up there to watch that review, and it feels just as torquey, not quite as fast, but it feels super, super torquey, and that's awesome. Now, the power is slightly beaten by the now discontinued Mercedes X-Class, but again, discontinued, and also it is $15,000 more. And this car is just great. So yeah, super happy with how it drives and its performance. In terms of handling, it is very vague, but it's not unexpected for a large. Again, this is a work truck, it's not a sports car, so I don't expect too much from it. It is pretty good though. And the traction with the all-wheel drive is awesome. It is so good. Now, as you can probably hear, the engine is quite noisy. And I do have it in sport mode as well, which means it holds the gears for longer. It's a bit more responsive with transmission, and so, you know, it's going to be a bit louder. But anyone who buys a turbo diesel, especially a V6 turbo diesel, got to expect it's going to be a bit noisy. It does do a pretty good job of dulling out the sounds though. Ride quality as well is pretty good. It goes over bumps pretty smoothly for a dual cab ute anyway. You do have to remember that the suspension is set up to take a ton of weight in the back, and as a result, when you do go over bumps, especially with the rear axle, you feel it. But when you're driving around town, these wheels, they do a pretty good job of soaking up the bumps just because they have so much tire tread on them. And the suspension as well does a pretty decent job. It feels planted and it feels more like a car than any other ute I have driven, which is good. The downside of that, and one of the biggest downsides of the Amarok, is that the off-roading capability, while there, is not amazing. If you do want to go off-roading, everything is electronic. There is no low-range transfer case like you'll find in a lot of other utes. You can get it in the manual version, but you won't find it here in any of the automatic-only Amaroks. Now, I can't take it off-roading because of COVID-19, but there are some great videos out there that go more in-depth into its off-roading capabilities, and for the most part, it is pretty good. Again, not the best in class, but for 99% of buyers out there, the most off-roading they will do in this car is a gravel road or a work site. Nothing too serious. But if you're looking for a serious off-roader, there are better ones out there. The Ford Ranger and the Land Cruiser 70 series are great cars that do just that. But you can still go off-roading in the car, especially with that Canyon-only skid plate. So is the Volkswagen Amarok worth it? What great performance. Well, yes, while the performance is great, it has a major flaw, or should I say major flaws, and that is this car is just not as safe as the competition. What I mean by that is it had a 5-star ANCAP safety rating, which was really good, but that was from 2010. There are no airbags in the back, so if you carry children, if you carry friends, family in the back, it's just not as safe as competitors who do have airbags in the back. There is no active safety on the car. There's no autonomous emergency braking, lane keep assist, things that are just important for safety. I have personally had autonomous emergency braking save my bum a couple of times. It's a pretty important feature in modern cars, and you just don't get that in this car. Ooh. Nice. So I feel like I can't recommend this to people who do have families or who often take people in the back seats, because you just don't get as safe a car as competition. And I know that that's personally put off a couple of people who I know who are looking for dual cab utes, who wanted to buy a dual cab ute, liked the way that the Amarok drove, but were just turned off by the fact it didn't have rear airbags, which is a bit of a fault. In fact, it's quite a bit of a fault. Now, if you do look past that, even though it has 10-year-old underpinnings, it still drives amazingly well. You know, the all-wheel drive system and this perler of a diesel engine make this one of the best utes in terms of driving that you can buy right now on the market. In fact, I would go so far as to say it is better than all of its competitors. You know, dare I say, it almost feels like a Golf GTI or some other Volkswagen sporty product. It's that good. And also the all-wheel drive system. I love all-wheel drive systems because when you turn a corner, you don't have to be worried that you're not going to make it or that you're going to slip. You're going to have wheel spin at the front or you're going to drift out at the back because it's all-wheel drive. Loads and loads of grip. So yes, if you can look past the fact that it doesn't have the most up-to-date safety tech, then for $58,990 drive away, I think that this Canyon Edition Amarok is a awesome car and you will not regret purchasing one. In fact, it's one of the few cars that I get that when I take it back, I'm gonna feel pretty sad about giving it back. I really like the way it drives. And it's just practical. So anyway, guys, if you did enjoy the video, make sure you go down there and like the video. It really helps the channel out. Comment down there right now as well. What do you think about the Volkswagen Amarok? Do you own one? Do you want to own one? Or is it a car that you don't really like? Of course, subscribe to the channel if you are new. I put out loads of reviews just like this every week. So you get to see cool car reviews pretty often. It's a good deal and it's free. Why not? But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching and I'll catch you next time.